I think for them, they had reached the limit of just burnout. And for me, I've been in corporate for so long that I understood brand planning, strategy, ROI, like all of the things that I needed to figure out. So by the time that I got Tiny Superheroes, I'm so inspired by this vision for what we're doing. And that's why I put the bold claim out there of 5 million superheroes in the next 5 years. And that's really just the start.
Welcome back, everybody. Brubaker, founder of Collective Responsibility, here today with another episode of the Mission Driven Podcast. Through this podcast, I'm trying to inspire, equip, and engage the next generation of aspiring mission-driven entrepreneurs, investors, academics, the wider ecosystem. I'm extremely honored to be joined by Erika Sinner, who is the CEO of TinySuperheroes, which is a nonprofit on a mission to empower children facing illness or disability. And she's also based in St. Louis, my hometown, trying to really do the good work there. And it's really great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
All right. So as a starting point, I always like to ask, who are you and what is the mission that you're on?
But I would say I'm a Midwest girl who is a dog mom, married to my best friend, and I'm on a mission to make an impact in the world.
And for those that haven't heard of TinySuperheroes and need a proper introduction to it, what is the mission behind the organization and how did you come to be involved with it?
So Tiny Superheroes is all around giving kids a new story about who they are. When you are born with a abnormality, you're born with a birth defect. Like this is the language that is used in healthcare. And it's not meant to be anything other than just clinical language, but you're already starting off saying there's something not normal about you. You're broken, you're defective. And so at Tiny Superheroes, the whole idea is that we welcome them to the squad. They actually get a cape that they get to wear, and then they earn patches for every clinical mission that they go on. So we're celebrating those milestones, and they're really proud to talk about the things that they have been so brave and courageous and have gone through.
Break that down for me a little bit. You mentioned clinical, like these are kids going through treatments, and that's where you're engaging with them, say at children's hospitals, or these are just normal kids through, through schools or whatever. They've been kind of brought to your attention, and you work with them. Like who are the groups that you're working with, and what's the age range as well?
Yeah, I would say our main focus is kids who have to be in the hospital, who have to go to the hospital a lot. So that can come from anything from you have hemophilia, or you have cancer, or you were born with you were a NICU baby, and there's a whole host of complications that are now part of your life moving forward. We have started to expand a little into schools, for kids that we might have missed when they were in the hospital, but now they are in elementary schools and they have their disabilities where we see difference as a superpower, so we have helped them to feel like superheroes. And really it's just this idea that as you go into any of these treatments, whether it be surgery, an MRI scan, I mean, these are scary situations, and children really look to the adults into the room to know, like, am I okay? Should I be scared? Should I be worried? And when you introduce superhero culture and a parent can say, instead of saying for an MRI scan, it's not going to hurt and you just have to be really still and I'm just going to be right outside, that feels really different than saying, okay, we're going on a mission today and we're going to put your cape on and you're going to be super brave and you just got to be really still. And afterwards, you're going to earn your MRI patch so you can tell everyone what you did today. Truly, when they put their capes on, you feel like a superhero, but then afterwards, as you're walking through the hallways, as you're seeing other people and you're engaging with others and they see that, the words come easy to them too, where they're like, oh my God, we have a superhero in the room. And then they can say, like, I just went on a mission on an MRI scan. So it's introducing this idea of play into an unlikely place of a hospital.
So what was your first interaction with it, and how did you come into the work?
I actually met one of the founders in Entrepreneurs Organization, which I'm sure you're familiar with. We were in a forum together back in 2020. I learned about what she was doing and I just was beside myself. Like I fell in love immediately with what she was doing. And we'd always tried to partner. I have my company Directory, which helps pharmaceutical companies commercialize. And so I always felt that there was a synergy or there was a call for me to do something with Tiny Superheroes. And then last year they came to me and just had said, listen, we're in the red, but in a big way. This isn't working. It's been around for 11 years. We're going to have to close it down. And so we're not really sure, but we're here to talk to you about it. And within 5 weeks, we closed a deal. I acquired the company And it became really apparent to me that this should be a nonprofit.
You mentioned that about a year ago they came to you and they asked for your help, and then you end up acquiring or taking them over. How did you go from volunteer supporter, love you in the forum to, all right, I'm now going to run the show and I'm gonna support you and I'm gonna take this over?
They expressed to me, we've been doing this for 11 years. We are directly replying to every family. We are in the Facebook groups, which has like 60,000 parents in it. And just the main one, there's a dad's group, there's the Angel Squad group. For them, they had just said, like, we feel like we have taken this as far as we can take it. We emotionally are ready to give it to someone else who can take it forward. When we talked in the deal around the acquisition, it was like, what is the value? How do I help, validate what they have, this vision that they had around giving kids a new identity of who they are, the work that they have done for the last 11 years, but also as a business person to figure out like, what is the true value of this? And what am I going to have to invest in putting this and really taking it forward? And so, we had a lot of discussions around that. And at the time they didn't have any other buyers. So, I could have really undercut them, really said like, I'm willing to take it over. At least your dream won't die. But I wanted to do right. And I think when you can do right and you can lead by heart, you will win. And so we worked out a structure where I could give them, a year and a half severance of their salaries as part of the acquisition price. I bought them out of the debt that they had and then bought their inventory, knowing that for myself, I would figure out how I was going to make this work, but it wasn't going to be here's the value of the trademark, here's the value. I mean, it wasn't going to be millions and millions of dollars of a deal. It was truly like, what can make both of us feel good in moving forward? And we're friends. And so that's also hard to be friends when you're negotiating. There's lawyers involved in all of the things. But it took a lot of just intentional, clear communication coming from a place of vulnerability and saying, like, hey, I'm just trying to do the right thing here.
All right, you have that 5 weeks, you come to a deal. Did they just exit? And what's the transfer like? And okay, they ping you or you ping them here and there, but do they have a more active role that just is kind of, it's very quiet and it's when they want to? Like, what's that transition look like for them?
For the first 3 months, it was really calls with them around, discovery and process outline to make sure that we were recording the calls, but also noting down exactly what we do, who do we call, where do we go, what are all of the outstanding things that we have to work into our budget to plan for the future. And that was even hard for them. I think they were so burnt out. They were just like, we've hit the end of our road. But they really, in those 3 months, like did all of those things. And then because their severance is, a year and a half, it was more of like, and you would be available for ad hoc calls, text messages, something happens. And so that's really how we worked it out together. But I do think it's important to work that in, even if you think you have all of the right team members, all of the right agency partners to help you, having the person who built it be available to you is invaluable.
Obviously, the original values and mission must be pretty well aligned with what you want and want to keep. But are there things in the last year that you've seen the original mission, you've seen the original process? What resonated, or what did you need to keep? What had to be kept? And then how much of the organization are you looking at now and be like, okay, we can improve this, we can make this a process. Like, how much of that are you playing with, or are you just kind of like, look, we're gonna take what we got and we're just gonna keep it going forward? Like, what was your process around that?
I think for me, it was thinking about what does the community need? And then also, what is it going to take to sustain? To sustain is not doing all of the things that the community is asking for, right? New patches, new designs from kids, I mean, we already have over 400 patches that go onto our capes. The birthday program, a fundraising program. I mean, there's always so many ideas. And truly, anyone I talk to about Tiny Superheroes is like, you should do this, you should do that. Like the ideas can so quickly, and it is fun to think about. But it's how do you stay focused as an entrepreneur to say, what is at the core of the program? And it's really the capes, the patches, and our monthly mission program. It's those three areas. And then we also have our Angel Squad for our superheroes who pass away. And so as long as we could stay focused on those, then it was how are we now delivering it out into the world? And it doesn't work direct to consumer. I want to go into hospitals. And so, my experience in hospitals, it's sizing the market. There are 6,000 hospitals in the United States, 226 of them are children's hospitals. those 226 make up 75% of all pediatric admissions every year. And there's 5.2 million of those. So we could capture 75% of the market in the 226 hospitals if we could just introduce it there first. And staying laser focused on that and not trying to do the birthday program and the other programs. And it's like we're focused on hospitals. This is where we're going. And of course, when we get our footing there, then we can start about, thinking about expanding the program and doing other things. But let's stick to our mission first.
So you're moving from, and if I have this correct, you're moving from a for-profit to a nonprofit as part of this. Um, why are you doing that? Are you going to keep the for-profit there just in case it's handy as well? Like, do you see utility in both, or are you going to go full nonprofit and just make that the future?
I think in my mind, so you're absolutely right. It is a completely different business model. It's a different employee base that I need in terms of how we're going to move this forward. It's no longer ads online to try to get parents to join our super squad or fundraising for their capes to join the birthday program. There still will be SEO and some ads that are happening more around the fundraising piece. Like, do you want to be a hero? Do you want to activate a superhero on our wait list? But the majority is going to be around hospital liaisons, people who know how to communicate with hospitals around how do we work this into your protocols? How do we show you about the clinical value of the program? I think for me, it's thinking about in the nonprofit space, you are able to fundraise in a different way. You are able to have corporate sponsorships and create team building activities that I'm aware do happen within corporate arenas that can actually make an impact. So I do feel like the nonprofit is the priority for me.
Um, that's really interesting. And it sounds like you just bring a ton more energy to the, I mean, uh, not to say anything about the previous founders, but like you sound like they were kind of out of energy. I can imagine like they're just looking like this is big enough. It's already hard enough. You're bringing a huge burst of energy. When you look at not just the original vision, but maybe the potential scale, do you see it differently? Do you see something totally like, oh my God, we can just boom if we get this right? And where are you with that? And I mean, have you talked to the founders like, hey, you've got to X, I can take it to Y? Like, what was the process for even revisioning maybe the potential scale for this as well?
When Robin created this and she heard a child was going in for surgery and they were afraid and she was like, oh, they need a cape. And she actually made it on her sewing machine. And then somebody at the hospital was like, where did you get that cape? And so then they asked her to make another one. And before she knew it, she made 50. And then she was asked to make 100. And so then, she started this company. So it kind of came out of this little, like a serendipitous moment for her, but she never set out to start a company. She didn't set out to have like a large vision of here's what I'm doing. And so for them, they've just been trying to figure it out for 11 years, and entrepreneurship is hard. Like you have to have this irrational belief in yourself that you can do anything and that you can change the world and that you're going to figure it out. And it takes grit and resilience and sometimes 100-hour weeks, which sounds insane, but it like humanly it's possible and you do it. And so I think for them, they had reach the limit of just burnout. And for me, when I started my company Directory, I started it with intention and with big vision. And I had been in corporate for so long that I understood brand planning, strategy, ROI, like all of the things that I needed to figure out. So by the time that I got TinySuperheroes, I'm so inspired by this vision for what we're doing. And that's why I put the bold claim out there of 5 million superheroes in the next 5 years. And that's really just the start. Because if these 226 hospitals are seeing 5.2 million every year, new ones, new kids, 5.2 million every year, not readmissions, but new kids, and we're in all of them, right? We should get to our 5 million number pretty quickly and then expand even beyond that. But I do have a bigger vision of I don't want it just to be for kids who are sick to feel like tiny superheroes. I want the healthy kids to want to be a part of this squad too. And I want to include them in some way so that they all feel like they're a part of this squad together because I really do believe the biggest thing we all need as human beings is the we want to belong.
No, absolutely. And I can see like the that's why the patches are so powerful when the kids are walking through, and they can, if they're seeing multiple kids walking around, they can actually like compare patches in a way, right?
Yes, Boston Children. A mom just reached out and she's like, we hung ours on the door, and then down the hall, another family hung theirs on the door, and we're like, oh my God, there's another superhero family here. And because they earn different patches, one has 4 surgeries on there, well, the other one has all their chemo patches on there, right? And we crossed out chemo and put tiny superhero fuel. So again, we're always reframing what it is that they're doing. But it's cool for them to start to connect and then to also be able to have a more fun conversation around something that's really hard.
Actually, can you talk about how this changes the kid? Like, I'm really curious because when you say like they hung them all there, I mean, as a parent, it's gonna be soul crushing. Um,
It's
but
actually
from
quite the
the
opposite.
really, okay, so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like how the language changes the behaviors or the
Yeah.
like the from the kid's perspective or even the parents' perspective, like how are you changing their outlook or their demeanor or their emotions at the time?
Yeah, I mean, we've had reports of some of our tiny superheroes who, they have their colostomy bag, which literally means like, their feces is coming out through a tube and it's going into a bag. That's an embarrassing thing to talk about. But because they are a superhero, because they have all of their patches, and because their parents have gotten so used to talking about everything is a mission, everything is they're like, that's what gives you your superpowers. And the mom the one who's actually at Boston Children's had said she heard her son on the playground, one of the kids asked, like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it gives me my superpowers. And then they're like, oh, cool. And then they go on and keep playing. Like so that you're not embarrassed by the things that are connected to you, that you have been through, the scars that you have. We have a Love Your Scar patch. It's really reframing for them of like, you should be so proud of the things that you have done that and even when we think about healthy kids and they're like starting to whisper like, oh, you see the halo on their head that's like screwed into their head, or they have a wheelchair. Like instead of whispering, if by with tiny superheroes being so open to talk about it, it makes it okay to ask questions. And when you can lean into curiosity and you can learn, then you're like, oh, wow. And like you start to realize as the healthy person, like, wow, this person had to learn how to walk again, or this is something they have to do every day. And so it's teaching empathy for the kids that are healthy with the kids who are having to go through what they're going through. And it gives the kids who are going what they're going through like a real sense of like, you are really strong, and you should be in school, you should get to play on sports teams if you want to, you should get to be on playgrounds, and you're not. Like you've had to be in and out of hospitals and doing things that are scary, and there's like loud beeping machines, and you're waiting in these waiting rooms, your parents sometimes aren't with you. Like all of that really matters, and that's because you've been so strong. And then I think for the parents, for them it's like, gosh, you've just given us a different language. We have a child who had cancer, and the mom had said like every time we go in for chemo, like now the child looks at their mom and says like, it's okay, mama. Like, I know the next few days are going to be hard because chemo will make you start to vomit. It makes you very sick for a few days, but I'm a superhero and I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to be really brave. Like, for a child to say that, I get goosebumps telling you about it. And for the parent to hear that too, like, it's creating resiliency in both of them. And then the really beautiful thing that I didn't expect or I didn't know would happen would be what the impact that it's had on the healthcare providers that are actually doing the work with them, right? Like they're like, we've been having to pin kids down. We've been having just to change their IV, to do the things that we need to do. And, we have a child in Children's Hospital of Philadelphia where she had become combative with the child life nurse specialist. Like she just knew every time that they came in, something was going to happen to her. And the mom, when she got her cape and she's been earning her little Band-Aid patches for the IV, because that's really the thing that really bothers her is when they draw the blood. So we keep giving her patches for that. She's like, now people come in and we call her Super Sabrina, is always just like, okay, I'm ready. And then she like puts her arm out, they do the thing, and then immediately she's like, where's my patch? Like, because she wants to earn her patch. And so for health providers, they've really explained like, you've changed the game for us. You've made it really fun for us. To talk about it differently so it doesn't sound so scary. And that helps too, because I think healthcare providers, I mean, they're also facing burnout. They're trying to do the right thing, and it's hard when you know the child is so scared and it's not you, but you still have to do it.
What have you been learning through this transition, taking over the organization, setting that 5-year goal of 5 million? working with the families. Like, this is a very emotional, raw organization. You're having real human impact, but you're thinking like, clinically, I just want to hit the numbers as well. Like, but what are you learning about the issue? What are you about learning about yourself? What are you learning about building this organization as you're transitioning from someone who's supporting a founder to actually becoming the CEO?
I thought I learned a lot in my first company around like agility and being able to adapt and that you can't plan for everything. And so what are we going to do? And do you have the right people around you? But this feels different. Like this is like I feel like I'm walking through like a land field and like at any moment, right? Zapier could break or coupon carrier could break. And I've like trying to figure these things out has taught me a lot of patience and listen, I've been through a lot of hard things in my life. I can figure this out. Like, don't let this be the thing that then like interrupts the rest of the day because my meetings that I'm having are with hospitals or with families or with sponsors or donors. Like, I've got to be able to show up. And I think what I have really learned about myself in this whole process is you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help other people. And that for me, that means I have to figure like if I am there have been nights I work here until like 10, 11 o'clock, sit at this desk figuring things out, but there has to be a call it quits moment. I have to get my sleep. I have to work out. I have to go see my doctor, right? We have to take care of ourselves because if you don't, then the mission won't continue as badly as you're trying. And so I think that that is super important. I wish I would have learned that in my first company.
I totally agree. And I feel I have a question about running multiple things because, we tend to get really involved and we go 70, 80 hours a week and we're like, okay, this is great because this is the mission. This is what I signed up for. But then you're like 6 months later, like, oh man, what did I do?
Yeah.
Or 10 years later, like, I've just got to, like, even 6 years later, like, they start looking for the exit and that's not where you want to be.
That's not exactly. I think it's like, how do you plan for the recharge? Because I still have weeks where I'm pushing a lot of time between directory, now Tiny Superheroes, my book media. And so when I know I'm going to have heavy travel schedules, I just make it okay that I'm going to get an IV or I'm going to have a massage scheduled. So I have something to look forward to know I'm going to have a soft landing and I'm going to be able to recover from this. I also think it's being okay with saying like I see a therapist. It has been really hard for me every time a child passes and joins our angel squad and I'm texted a photo of, a child's hand who passed away and their mom's hand, like to try how do you not internalize that in a way that is like debilitating so I can keep the mission going, but also not detach so much that you're not feeling it. But I also wish I would have been going to therapy while I was building my first company to just like have a dedicated space. Your employees are not who you need to be talking to that about, right? You got to be leading them, inspiring them, moving things forward. Your friends, like that things, it's hard. They don't understand because they're not a founder too. They're not in the same situation. They can empathize, but they don't really know what it's like. Where therapy is just like 60 minutes, like paid time where like you can just like word vomit all of the things and then learn true like coping skills of like, how am I going to get through this?
Okay, that's the mental side. I'm curious how you manage the entrepreneur running two organizations because I've run multiple, and what I've always found is you get one up here, then you go focus on this one starts to slip, then you got like how do you find managing both organizations, and what's been the benefit maybe to directory through this? Like, is it growing now because you're not so hands-on so the team can bloom underneath you, or like what's your experience after the first year?
With on the directory side, I always knew my goal was to get myself into a CEO role where I wanted updates, I wanted to ask the hard questions, I wanted to think about the vision. And so it was always around building and creating a leadership team that understood the culture I wanted to have, the expectations that I wanted to have high performance, but also really care about our people. And so I'm so proud of the leadership team that I have at Directory there, where in the past year, though, to your point, because I have had to focus on Tiny Superheroes. And I think stars aligned that it came. I don't know if I could have done this in year two of directory, year three of directory, but now I think in the last year, watching the leadership team at directory blossom in the way that they have, they're doing things better than I would have done them, which is what you want, right? You want to hire people who are smarter than you, and then you want to give them the latitude to do what it is that they are here to do. And it's just being really clear about what are the expectations and the results that I'm looking for, and then checking in on how you're going to get there. They're going to figure it out. And so directory has really blossomed and it's doing better than it's ever done. And I'm proud of that. And I think with Tiny Superheroes, it's been a little bit of a working for me of like to run at a CEO level, but then also like drop all the way down to like we've received this email from a family in the customer service line. Like how do we respond to it? And balancing that out. But the same will be true for Tiny Superheroes in terms of I in the nonprofit space. Things move slower than I thought that they would. And I think, even the talent that has reached out and said, like, here's what I would do, here's how long it would take me, here's what I've seen working in other nonprofits. Maybe there's a reason for that, I'm not sure, but I'm choosing not to run Tiny Superheroes in that way. It's going to run in the same way I run directory. We're high performing teams, we deliver results, we're moving fast, there's accountability measures, we pay for results, we pay for performance. And we demand excellence because we're a good company to work for, we're good managers, and we have an incredible mission. So I do plan to run my nonprofit in the same way I run directory. The difference is now I have a board that I answer to, or directory is private. So there's updates and things that, go along with that too. But um, I'm excited for the challenge. It's been really, I've learned a lot. This has been my biggest growth year the last
That's
12
awesome.
months.
Um, Directory is how old, and how long did it take you to build that leadership team, do you think, over time?
It's 7 years old, and I would say 3 years before I could truly say, like, hey, I have the right forecasting meetings together. I have the right leadership meeting updates. I have the right one-on-ones in place. I used to meet with everybody one-on-one, and now it's more of like the C-suite, and then the VPs report into the C-suite. I would say it took about 3 years to really, you got to lead by example, you got to model what you're looking for, and then you also have to have hard conversations with people and be really direct. I think clear is kind from Brene Brown says that. And then people can't read your mind. So
No, that's a good one. That's a whole other podcast as well. Clear as kind. Learning how to communicate, and that's something I picked up after a big blowout one time. I'm curious, like you went up that curve, you got 10 years of directory, 3 years it took to build, but there's a lot of, say, mirroring or lessons that you can bring over to Tiny Superheroes. So I'm curious, like as I'm thinking how you're going to build Tiny Superheroes in a really like the same kind of mindset and path that you use for directory, like what does that look like? Like how big are you at directory? How long did it take you to create this structure? And what are the things that you think, like when you look at Tiny Superheroes, like, oh yeah, this is exactly like it was the first year of directory.
we have 32 employees full time, and then we have a network of contractors that's how we help. That's our scaling strategy. Because I don't like to bring on new employees unless I can guarantee that if you do a good job, you will have a job, which means that we have to properly forecast out what we think is going to happen in the market. And so my approach there was my first two hires were two people who are on my leadership team now. Like they were the most expensive. I paid myself less to be able to bring them on. And I think all of the advice around me was like, what are you doing? Like you should bring an admin on. You should bring in like a marketing coordinator or product manager on. And I had just said no, like I need to be able to scale faster. I need to be able to delegate work in a way that I'm not having to micromanage because they know what they're doing. Was it hard? Like, yeah, like first year of directory, I traveled for 22 weeks straight, 2 to 3 cities a week, all those weeks. I mean, it was a lot. But I also with the team that I had, I could really lean on them. I could really like help them understand how I wanted to see things done, but they also had the experience within the pharmaceutical space to know how to like move a project forward. So that's, I think, the same approach I want to take over at Tiny Superheroes is while I do have I have one person who's helping me with like my hospital liaison communications, with like inventory management, with customer service. I want to get in that leadership role with me there. And it teaches them too how to roll up their sleeves, how to do everything from top to bottom. Nothing is beneath them. And so that when we do start to build the team, they actually can mentor and train because they have done it themselves. So my approach has always been hire your top part and then build out your team, which I think might be disagreed by a lot of people.
I think it depends on how people look at their resources. And also, I liked how you said, like, it was also like what you're looking going forward, like what will you need going forward. And actually, everything I've ever done except for one has always been on my own. Now I look at that like, oh, you like to have like co-founders, to have like a strong GM, even if they're paid more than you. And I had a few of those situations where I was paying a GM more than I was being paid. Again, like it's what you don't look at it as an expense, you look at it as an investment, right? So
Exactly. Yes,
it's
exactly. And
different.
listen, I made more than them after the first year. It was just that initial, like, it's almost like this was like my seed funding for myself to be able to get them. And I also had to get really comfortable with like, I am not, when you bring on a new employee, you're not bringing on an entire salary because you don't pay that whole salary right away. You're paying month by month by month. And if you really are hey, we pay for performance, we pay for results, you're just as responsible as I am in delivering the revenue that we're trying to make, right? Like it's getting them in the mindset of like responsibility into the revenue too, I think is super important.
So with that in mind, who are going to be your top leadership hires for Tiny Superheroes?
Yeah, so my first hire is going to be like a chief mission officer. So similar to like a COO or chief marketing officer in like other areas, where they're going to be focused on like corporate sponsorships, the structure of the organization, what are the roles that we need, how are we looking at our website, our marketing, our messaging, like all of the things there. So that's first. And then the second one is also some sort of like fundraising partner, and whether that is through foundations, whether that is through grant writing. And that's the other part too, is instead of just having a grant writer or here's a donor relationships person, or like I've always believed in how having somebody come onto the team and going in eyes wide open to say, this is the full job. Should you choose to accept it, like I believe it's going to be rewarding, but I do believe in the like, let's push your capacity to where you can be, and then you're gonna be really proud of yourself. And it also helps you learn to be super efficient. People are always like, oh my God, you move through PowerPoint so fast, Excel so fast, you schedule meetings so fast, you do things so, and it's like out of necessity. And like it can't be that you're trying to figure out, right? Like it's because you're so, and then once you got it, you're like, what's next? Like what's going on? Like every day, it's like, how do I blow my own mind? How do I blow my customer's mind? But those are the two I would say I'm really looking to. And I think from a community management, our social media engagement, the beautiful thing about superhero culture is that it is truly so easily understood. And all of our families really just want to be seen and to be heard and to be known that they are loved. And so you don't need somebody at such an expensive level to be responding to the messages, to be responding to customer service. Like that's not going to be my expensive roles. I think it's just having someone who really cares and is there and engaging.
You got the 5 million as a goal. You got your 262, I think it was, 266, um, 266 hospitals, right? And okay, then you kind of break things down, but what size team does that require from there? Like you have the 3, 4 leadership people, and also like what kind of revenue do you think it would require? I mean, I'm sure you know exactly like 5 million capes plus the average is 12 patches equals how much, but that's only one part. So like practically speaking, what does it take to reach that 5 million? And okay, you got your leadership hires, but then how do you break them down? Like the next 3 years, this is the J curve that we have to climb.
Yeah, I think, that's going to be part of what my chief mission officer is going to help me start to figure out. But I have my thoughts around this isn't going to be like a hospital launch in pharma where you have like X amount of reps across different regions and they have to be servicing the hospital and they're going in and calling on their doctors. And so you have 2,000 reps and here's all the places that they're going. And I see it very efficient and very lean. I think there is like points of contacts that may have like, here's you do all of the West hospitals and you do all of the East hospitals, but you're really talking to one person within the hospital to send out the new shipments, to plan for Cape activation days. And then you've got, I do think like a volunteer manager, maybe on the East and the West, that's managing volunteers for like fundraising events. I don't think it's going to be a huge team. I also think AI has been incredible, truly, in our systems and process. And so that's going to be a big part of also making sure everyone understands how to utilize the tools that are available to them to then also optimize the output that they're able to do.
Um, Sorry, back to leadership team. When you think of these individuals, do they need to be parents? Do they need to have experience in going through the hospitals, or is it maybe I always felt like the tool set's important, knowing they're aligned to mission's important, but sometimes in the nonprofit space, we try to draw off of the same population that we're supporting as a way to really create, make sure the bridge is strong. Is that important through these leadership placements?
I don't think so. I don't have human kids myself. I have four dogs that are my kids. I think that every human being, what I have learned that really when we talk about like impact, like it's just about wanting to do good in the world. And everyone will have a different reason. For me, why I bought Tiny Superheroes is because my dad didn't choose me. He left our family when we were young. My mom had a lot of mental and health challenges. It was a really hard childhood. And so when I think about these tiny superheroes and I get to meet their parents and I see who they are and I see what they do and I see how they show up for their kids and they didn't ask for any of these things and yet they are doing it and they are the real superhero, these parents. And for them to tell me how much this program has meant for them and what it has allowed them to do, because kids don't come with handbooks. And so to be able to have something like this to help them through their journey, but also the monthly missions that we do, and it's something they look forward to as a family, that's my why. And so I think it's really, when I think about the people that will join the team, it's really understanding what drives them, what motivates them, what is their why, is it connected to the mission that we want to do? But also, like, are they like highly motivated, self-starters, super proactive, not always just looking for like, well, just tell me the issue and I'm immediately on it. Like you're also thinking on what we need to be doing too. And one thing I do know that I do struggle with is, a lot of people get really excited about the mission and they want to be here, and then you get caught up in the mission and you think we're playing and we're having a good time. And it's like, no, 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 this is a real job. This is a real company. We have a real impact to make. And like that means we're tracking metrics, we're doing KPIs, we're doing a brand strategy. It's not just about the fun. So it takes us, I think, a special human to understand all of that and then say, yes, I'm coming in. To the end of having parents, though, I do think it's important to always have, your end user perspective. And so we have a really strong board of directors. I have a Stanford psychologist who works in family trauma, and he helps us in like, how are we communicating? How are we doing things? We have a parent of a tiny superhero who was born with a congenital heart defect. She also helps us understand things like, you know, when we're communicating, or don't trauma bond. Like the beautiful thing about Tiny Superheroes is that you are talking about hope, you are talking about play, and how do you keep families uplifted in that, or even donors, right? So that somebody actually feels good after they've given you money to send out a starter kit, not because they're sad, but because they're like, man, I made a superhero today. Like, and they're going to be so excited to get their box.
That's awesome. And you have a very different approach to this from the average nonprofit
I
founder
know.
that I know. Like, and the other thing I notice is like in my time is if you run people a little bit too hard, mission can be a great fuel source, but it could also be the thing that comes back to bite you in the butt because they work so hard to burn out. So how will you manage that as well? Because I can already see like you will be very good at activating people. How much will you plan? Like, look, 40 hours is enough, like don't go too far, like, or how much time do you spend into recognizing like someone's going too far, and then how do you bring them back through this? Because this is a very different mission than directory, and people are going to get very emotionally tied to it. Do you think about that as a problem? Do you think about that as something that can be solved very easily? I'm really curious because a lot of founders I find in this space, like you rotate teams because they get tons of energy. They have a little bit of a fall off because they've completed a project or like they've had a really big successful fund, and then they're like, and when that happens, things change. So how do you approach that?
So my belief system has always been hire slow, fire fast. So, and what I mean by that is when you hire slow, you're really understanding who this person is, what they're capable of, what have they done in their past, what is driving them, can they self-manage, can they self-prioritize? And the fire fast is more around just like we do pay for performance, we do pay for results. And so when somebody isn't meeting the expectation, the best way to demotivate your all-star employee is to let a really crappy one keep going on, not doing their role, but everyone else is doing theirs, right? So it's about being on the team and saying we all contribute to being on the team. And then the way I manage burnout is in the same way that we do at Directory, because for me, it will never be like 40 hours is enough. Like there's gonna be 50-hour weeks, there's gonna be 60-hour weeks, there's gonna be crazy times that we're doing activations and we're doing launches and we're doing, and on the directory side, if we have multiple companies that have FDA approval, those are going to be some hard weeks, right? We're preparing for big things. But again, it's preparing them to know when are we doing the recharge. And we also, we formalized a document directory that I will be bringing over to Tiny Superheroes called Moments That Matter. And it's all of our team meetings that we have. So it's the mandatory one-on-ones that directors, product man, anyone who has a direct report, you must meet with your direct report every single week. It is the first week, the meeting that gets canceled, usually in corporate. It's the first one that gets moved. And that is the time. And we structure those and we train our managers around like how you, this isn't about the work part. This is like, how are you doing? Where are you behind? Where are you stuck? Tell me something last week that was really hard for you. And you might learn something like, it took me 30 minutes on the laptop that was like something was wrong, and you find out, oh my God, they need a new laptop. And we could take care of that like right away, and they wouldn't have such a frustrating time. And then we also have like, tell me something last week that you were really proud of. And then they'll share something about some project that they did with another employee, and you see something in them, and you're like, oh my God, you like working on things like that? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, would you want to be on this other, like hand selected to be on this other project that exposes you to leadership team? And they're like, yes. Like, so there's these moments that matter that are not just team meetings, that are not just one-on-ones, but if you can really train your teams to understand what those meetings are, what they're meant to do, and then actually spend time with your team, you will learn when there are things that are happening in their life where maybe this isn't the time to push them, but they're an all-star employee. And so, like, how do we help them reprioritize their tasks so they can keep their head above water? And you're also going to learn when there's times when they're like, I'm in and I'm ready for that next promotion. So, like, tag me in, coach. What else can I take on? And when your teams feel that way, right? Like, that's how you build culture. I really believe culture is how employees feel on Sunday night. If they have the Sunday scaries to come to work on Monday, you got a problem.
All right, I could go on with
Sorry.
that for another whole another podcast as well. But I'm gonna end it with one last question, which
Yeah.
was like you've just laid out so many things around culture and process and setting big goals. Like, what are two or three things that someone should consider before they're gonna take over an organization from a founder? Let's just start with that. Like, what are two or three things that you think are the most critical thing? Like when you are evaluating whether you should take over an organization, part of that process, what are two or three kind of tips you give to someone who's taking over an organization?
Make sure when you're making decisions that your life can support those decisions. When I think about like taking on a new company, like are you in the right state to be able to support whatever may happen in that, and really thinking and putting yourself like future self 6 months from now, could I handle if everything were crashing and burning? Could I also handle if all the things go well and like you have so much traffic coming in, and like will something else for every yes you give, you're saying no to something else. So just making sure that you truly can you can support the decisions that you are making. And then the second thing I would say is like you got to be able to laugh at yourself and to like know that you don't have it all figured out, and there's going to be times you're going to just be like, oh, expletive, expletive, expletive. Okay, so like, what's the game plan now? And like, ego has got to be left at the door for yourself and for the people around you. And then if you ask for one to two, but I would say the third thing is like, don't take advice from people who aren't taking the same risks or challenges or things. Like, don't take advice from friends or family who are like, oh, that's weird. Don't put yourself out there, or don't do this. Why would you do that to yourself? Like, they're coming from a very different place, and like, look to the people that you're inspired by. And I think it's pretty cool to be an example of what is possible.